Hey guys, what's up? So, this is kind of hard for me to talk about, but I've been getting a ton of messages since I posted that photo of me and Luis after we got rescued. A lot of people asked what really happened out there, like how we got lost, how we survived 5 days in the mountains near Machu Picchu, and what it felt like to not know if we were going to make it out alive. I haven't really sat down and talked about it in full before, but I feel like I owe it to myself and to everyone who reached out to just tell it the way it happened. No dramatics, no fake hero story, just what actually went down. So yeah, this was back in late March. Me and my buddy Luis have been planning a trip to Peru for like 2 years. It was one of those bucket list things, you know? We both love hiking, camping, the whole adventure vibe. I'd done a few serious trails before. Yosemite, parts of the Appalachian Trail, but the Andes? That was a different world. We wanted to do something more raw than the touristy Machu Picchu trail. We didn't want porters, fancy hotels, none of that. We wanted to really feel it, just us, our packs, and the mountains. The first couple days were incredible. We started from Tambo, heading along this lesser-known route that followed part of the Urubamba River Valley. It's wild out there, the kind of place where you feel small, like the mountains are alive or something. We camped near waterfalls, met a few locals who were super nice. They gave us chicha and told us about some old Inca paths that aren't on maps anymore. It felt like magic. By day 3, things started to shift. The weather up there can turn fast. One minute it's sunny and you're sweating. The next there's mist rolling in and you can barely see 10 feet ahead. Around mid-afternoon, we hit this steep stretch of trail that kind of hugs a cliffside. The soil was loose, and I remember thinking, man, this doesn't feel right. Luis was ahead of me, and I could see him stopping every few steps, checking his footing. I don't even know exactly how it started. Maybe we stepped on a weak patch, maybe the rain from the night before softened the slope, but suddenly the ground just gave way. It was the loudest thing I've ever heard, like thunder cracking under your feet. I remember the split second where everything slowed down. I saw rocks tumbling past me, Luis turning around with this look of pure shock, and then we were moving, sliding, rolling, falling. I tried to grab onto something, anything, but it was all mud and debris. My backpack slammed into my shoulder, I hit my head. Everything went black for a few seconds. When I came to, it was quiet except for the sound of the river below. I was lying in wet dirt, maybe 30 or 40 feet down from where the trail had been. My left knee hurt like hell, but nothing felt broken. I yelled out for Luis. Nothing. I yelled again, louder, and finally heard him shout back, faintly. I can't even describe the relief I felt hearing his voice. He was maybe 50 yards downstream, tangled up near some bushes. He'd lost one of his trekking poles and his phone, but otherwise he was okay, just scraped up and dazed. We tried to climb back up, but the slope was basically mud now, just crumbling every time we touched it. The trail was gone. Like literally gone. We checked the map and GPS, but the app couldn't get a signal. The clouds had rolled in again, and it started to drizzle. That was when it hit us. We were stuck. We figured we'd just follow the river downstream. We knew it eventually led towards civilization. Maybe not directly to Aguas Calientes, but somewhere. It seemed logical. If we followed the water, we'd find people. So we packed up what we could. We still had our tent, a small gas stove, some protein bars, trail mix, and water filters. We thought, worst case, it takes us a day or two to find a village. Spoiler, it didn't take 2 days. That first night, we set up camp near the riverbank. It rained most of the night, and our tent wasn't exactly waterproof anymore. Everything was damp, and I remember lying there listening to the rain, thinking about how far we might be from anyone. Luis tried to joke like, hey, at least we'll have a good story for YouTube, but I could tell he was worried. We both were. The next morning, we started walking. The jungle gets thicker the further down you go. It's not like the pretty hiking videos you see online. There's vines, mud up to your knees, insects everywhere. And the sound, it's constant. Birds, frogs, water. You start to realize how loud nature really is. Our GPS was useless, so we used the river as our guide. We tried to stay close, but the terrain kept forcing us higher up the slope or around boulders. Every few hours, we'd check our bearings with a compass, just to feel like we were still going somewhere. We ran out of protein bars by the end of day 2. We thought we'd be back by then. Luis had brought some instant rice, but we couldn't get a proper fire going with all the rain, so we just ate it half-soaked in cold water. I remember thinking it tasted amazing. Hunger does that to you. For water, we used the rain and the river, filtering it through our bottles. That was the one thing we didn't worry about too much. At least we had that. By day 3, things got rough. My knee was swollen from the fall, and Luis's ankle was starting to hurt from walking on uneven ground. We were tired, wet, hungry, and starting to lose track of time. I kept telling myself, we just have to keep moving. Someone will find us. But deep down, I knew nobody even knew exactly where we'd gone. We'd taken an unmarked path, just trying to get a better view. The thought started creeping in. What if no one even knows we're missing yet? We started eating berries, small dark ones we found growing near the river. Luis said he recognized them from foraging book, but honestly, at that point we were just gambling. We tested a few first, waiting to see if they made us sick. They didn't, so we started picking handfuls. We also collected some rainwater using our tarp, just to have extra in case the river got muddy again. That night, we didn't even bother pitching the tent. We just found a dry patch under a rock overhang and tried to sleep. The jungle doesn't sleep, though. You hear things moving around you, branches cracking, rustling, and your brain just goes wild. I remember waking up like every 15 minutes, clutching my knife, heart pounding. Luis snored through most of it somehow. That guy could sleep through an earthquake. By day 4, I was starting to lose a bit. Everything hurt, and we hadn't eaten properly in 2 days. We found some sort of root that looked edible, boiled it a little, and it was bitter as hell, but we forced it down. The rain wouldn't stop. It was like the world was trying to wash us away. We tried shouting for help whenever we heard distant sounds, but it was probably just the river echoing back. The air was heavy, like breathing through wet cloth. At one point that afternoon, we thought we saw smoke far off through the trees. We got so excited, started waving our jackets, yelling, but when we got closer, it was just mist rising off the valley. That crushed us. I remember sitting there, just staring at the ground, feeling empty. Luis looked at me and said, "We'll be fine, bro. We just keep following the river." I nodded, but in my head, I wasn't so sure anymore. That night was the worst. The rain turned into a full-on storm. The river was roaring. We huddled together under the tarp, tried to keep our stuff dry, but the wind ripped one of the corners loose and everything got soaked again. I don't know if it was the cold or the exhaustion, but I started shaking uncontrollably. Luis kept talking to me, trying to keep me awake. We both knew hypothermia was real danger out there. When dawn finally came, the rain had stopped. The whole world smelled like wet earth. That morning felt different, calm, somehow. We were exhausted, starving, but there was this quiet determination between us. We decided to climb a ridge to see if we could spot any smoke, buildings, anything. The climb took hours, slippery rocks, dense vegetation, but when we got to the top, we saw something. A small clearing in what looked like farmland. We both just stood there in disbelief. We started yelling, waving our arms, and after a few minutes, we saw movement, actual people, walking near the fields. We ran down that ridge as fast as we could, sliding through mud, grabbing at branches, completely soaked, but man, seeing those people was like, I can't even explain it. Relief hit me all at once like a wave. They saw us waving and came running. Turns out, there were local farmers tending to their terraces. They were shocked to see us. I'm sure we looked like 2 drowned rats who'd been living in the jungle for a week. One of them shouted something in Quechua, and the other ran toward the farmhouse to grab more people. They brought blankets, food, hot tea, real human contact, and for the first time in days, I felt safe. Luis and I tried to explain, in broken Spanish, what had happened. The farmers didn't fully understand everything at first, but they got the gist. Lost hikers, muddy landslide, 5 days without proper food. One of them pulled out a phone and called local authorities. While we waited, they fed us some warm corn soup and fresh bread. I don't think I've ever eaten anything that tasted so good. Every bite was like fuel for the body and soul. Luis kept shaking his head, smiling, saying, "Man, we made it." And yeah, we did. Somehow we made it. They walked us back slowly along safer paths. It was amazing. Every step we had to be careful, but the jungle didn't feel threatening anymore. Just alive and beautiful. Birds were chirping, sun starting to peek through the clouds, and the mountains loomed like silent witnesses to our little ordeal. I remember thinking about how small we really were in the grand scheme of things, and how much nature just doesn't care about your plans. When we got back to a small village, the authorities came and checked us out. Nothing major, just scratches, bruises, some dehydration. My knee was swollen, but nothing broken. Luis had a few cuts on his ankle. They took us to a clinic for proper medical attention and told us we'd been very lucky. Lucky is an understatement. Lucky implies chance, but we'd made choices too. We kept moving, stayed calm, rationed food, drank rainwater, and stuck together. That's what got us through. Pure luck was just part of it. Once we were patched up and cleaned up, we had some time to reflect. Sitting in the small clinic, wrapped in dry blankets, we laughed at some of the ridiculous moments, like how we tried to make a fire in the pouring rain, or how we argued over whether those berries were safe to eat. But mostly it was quiet, a deep, quiet kind of awe. Being alive after 5 days out there, it changes you. I felt like I had a new perspective. Life is fragile. Every little comfort, food, shelter, dry clothes, suddenly meant so much more. Every sound, every sight, every human face, it became vivid, precious. Luis and I promised each other we'd never underestimate nature again. We'd always prepare better, plan for the worst-case scenario, and respect the mountains. That experience stripped us down to the basics. You don't need fancy equipment or tourist trails to understand survival. All you need is your mind, your body, and the person you're with. Trust, teamwork, and common sense become everything when you're facing that kind of raw environment. And honestly, humor helps too. I mean, if we hadn't laughed, we might have gone crazy. After that, we spent a few more days with the farmers. They were incredible, showing us local crops, teaching us about the jungle, telling us stories in Quechua and Spanish. It was like we'd stepped into another world. And for the first time, I realized something important. Surviving isn't just about staying alive. It's about connecting. It's about remembering that people exist who care, who will help, and that the world isn't just a harsh place. It's harsh sometimes, but it's also beautiful, full of generosity and life. When we finally returned to Cusco, the experience didn't leave us immediately. Every corner of the city, every alleyway reminded me of the jungle. I'd see a stream and think about following it, see a patch of berries, and think about how we had survived eating them. Luis and I became more cautious hikers, yes, but also more present in every moment. Eating a meal, taking a walk, even brushing your teeth, suddenly, normal life feels extraordinary. It sounds cheesy, I know, but it's true. The world after survival feels richer. I can't explain it any other way. Posting that first photo on Instagram after we were rescued, I remember thinking, okay, people need to know this. Not for attention, not to sound cool, but to remind anyone watching, nature is incredible, unpredictable, and demanding. You can't take it lightly. Plan carefully, respect it, and appreciate it. And if you ever find yourself lost, stay calm, stay together, use your resources wisely. Every little decision matters. Drink rainwater, eat what's safe, stay visible, and always keep moving in a safe direction. Over the next few weeks, I shared pieces of the story with friends, family, and some of my followers online. Every comment, every message reminded me how connected we are as humans. Strangers rooting for you when you've been alone in the jungle. It's wild. I started to write down the story more formally, partly to process it, partly because I realized it might help others who want to hike the Andes or any remote place. Knowledge is power, and sometimes sharing what you survived can save someone else's life. One thing that stuck with me forever is that sound from the landslide, that crack, that roar of earth moving. I'll never forget it. It's burned into my memory. The fear, the adrenaline, the sheer disbelief. It's something that can't be described fully in words. But so is the relief. So is that moment seeing those farmers waving back at us from the clearing. That moment changed me. It reminded me how fragile and precious life is. And it reminded me how resilient humans can be too. Even when everything seems lost, there's a way forward. You just have to find it. Luis and I still talk about that trip almost every day. We joke about things we did wrong, laugh at mistakes, but we also honor what happened. We survived something extraordinary, and that doesn't go away. Every hike, every trip, every adventure now carries that awareness, that sense of responsibility and gratitude. And honestly, I think that's the lesson I want everyone watching to take away. Life is fragile, nature is powerful, and survival is as much about mindset as it is about food, water, or gear. Respect it. Prepare for it. And if you're lucky enough to make it out, never forget it. So yeah, that's the story. 5 days lost in the Andes, following a river, eating berries, drinking rainwater, surviving mudslides, getting rescued by amazing farmers, and walking away with a new appreciation for life. It sounds dramatic, but it really was just life, stripped down, raw, and real. I try to be honest here because people need to hear the truth. Adventure is amazing, but it's not without risk. And sometimes, it's life-altering in ways you never expect. The reason I wanted to make this video, aside from sharing my story, is to remind anyone watching, don't take the outdoors lightly. Plan, prepare, respect the environment, and understand that it doesn't bend to your schedule or your plans. Respect it, and it will show you wonders. Disrespect it, and it can change your life, sometimes in ways you're not ready for. And always hike with someone you trust. Having Luis there, someone I could rely on and who could rely on me, that made all the difference. We looked out for each other, stayed positive, and made it through. I also want to shout out the farmers again. If it weren't for them, we might not have made it. They didn't hesitate. They fed us, kept us warm, called the authorities, and showed us incredible kindness. People like that restore your faith in humanity. That's something I'll carry forever. And honestly, if you ever get the chance to meet locals when hiking, listen to their advice. It's invaluable. They know the land in ways you never will. We ignored some warnings, and we paid the price. But they saved us in the end. Since then, Luis and I have been back hiking, but always with proper planning, proper gear, and better awareness. It's different now. Adventure is still thrilling, but it comes with a respect I didn't fully have before. And whenever someone asks us, what happened out there? How did you survive? I tell them the truth. Calm, resourcefulness, trust, perseverance, and a bit of luck. That's it. Nothing glamorous. Nothing heroic. Just survival. And honestly, surviving is heroic enough. Since then, Luis and I have gone back to hiking, but it's completely different now. Every trip, every trail, every step carries a weight of awareness I didn't have before. Adventure is still thrilling, sure, but it's no longer just about seeing cool places or taking pictures. It's about respect for the mountains, for nature, and for the people who live in those places. And whenever someone asks me, how did you survive out there? I just tell them the truth. Stay calm, think clearly, trust your instincts, work with your partner, and appreciate every little resource you have: food, water, shelter, even the tiniest bit of warmth or comfort. And yeah, a bit of luck doesn't hurt either. But more than survival skills, what I learned is gratitude. Gratitude for life, for Luis, for those farmers who saved us, and even for the jungle itself, as harsh as it was. That experience changed how I see everything. Normal life, eating a meal, sitting in a dry bed, even just walking down a street, it all feels like a gift now. I'll never forget those 5 days. I'll never forget the fear, the struggle, or the relief. And I'll never forget that being alive, really alive, is more precious than any adventure, any view, or any goal. So yeah, that's the story. 5 days lost, surviving mudslides, rain, and hunger, and walking out with a new perspective on life. It sounds extreme, and it was, but I want anyone watching to remember this. Respect nature, prepare for the unexpected, stick together, and never take a single moment for granted. That's the lesson I want you to take away. Thanks for listening, guys. Stay safe out there, and appreciate every little thing. You never know when it could make all the difference.